Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strangeness of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Thank you for tuning in today. And I just want to give a big shout out to all of y'all that have texted our new hotline. Thank you for the kind words and all that. And also, if you have recently reviewed the show over on Apple, I want to give you a big thank you for that as well. I appreciate the 5 stars, and the show has a perfect rating of 5 stars. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that. If you would like to send me a text message on our new text line, you can send me a text at 615-266-9965. That is 615-266-9965. You can also find the number over on our Facebook page. And also, if you want to become a supporter of the show, it is only $3 a month, and you will be getting extra content. You'll be getting the show 2 days early. You'll get the show, new shows on Monday instead of Wednesday. We also have a lot of other stuff that I have planned, some giveaways of show swag and merchandise and things like that, and all kind of good stuff. So go over to our Facebook page to click on that link as well and become a supporter over on Spreaker for $3 a month. And also, I've started a new video project with my buddy Austin Lawrence. It is called Strangely Haunted, and we're going to debut our first investigation video on March 8th, 2024 at 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, over on YouTube, Strangely Haunted. Please go over there and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when that video is premiering on Friday. And me and Austin will both be in the chat room during the premiere on YouTube. So we will be able to chat with y'all and answer questions and talk about the investigation. And we are doing real paranormal investigations. No bullshit, no trick shots, none of that. We even debunk ourselves in the video. But we do catch some evidence too. We got some EVPs and some footsteps and some other really cool stuff that you need to tune in and check out. So, also you can follow Strangely Haunted on Facebook, and we're going to do, one video a month. And a lot of these locations are places you've probably never heard of, which is kind of what we want to do. We don't want to go and hit the same locations that everybody's filmed at and every TV show and their mama's been at. We want to bring you some interesting history and visually stunning places and interesting stories on top of the actual, investigation itself. So please tune into that. It is called Strangely Haunted. And you can find links to that and even watch the trailer over on the Unseen Paranormal Podcast Facebook page. It's on Instagram. It's on our TikTok. It's on our Twitter. Also, if you have not subscribed to us or follow us on any of the social medias, please do. We're on all of them, basically. All the major ones anyway. Facebook. We also have a group, the Unseen Paranormal Lounge on Facebook. You can join the group. We have Instagram account, Twitter account, LinkedIn, and a TikTok account. And all those I keep up to date multiple times a week. The biggest platform for us is Facebook. That's where we do most of our posting and things. But we do have all those other social medias, as I said. And I do put videos up on TikTok for all the various projects that are under the umbrella of the Unseen Productions. Before we get to our guest today, I'm not going to do a big rant today on mental health, but the one thing I want to leave you with today, before we get on to our guest, is be kind to other people. Don't be self-important. I know we all get busy, and it's easy to have that self-important feeling where like what you got going on more important than somebody else. It's not. We all want the same things in this life. Just be cognizant of that and be nice to other people. You never know what that does for that other person or what it even does to you. You know, it feels good to be nice. So just be nice to other people and be nice to yourself. That includes yourself. You're worth it as well. And taking your shit out on other people and being mean to other people, that doesn't help anybody. And it doesn't make you feel any better. It really doesn't. Anyway, today we have Mr. John Bullard from the Paranormal Documentaries, The House in Between 1 and 2. And those documentaries were created by Kendall and Vera Whelpton from Robot Ninja Media, who, if you listen to the show for a long time, I've had them both on talking about their film, The Sleepless Unrest, which is where they spent 2 weeks in the Conjuring House. You can go back and listen to that episode. I believe it's in season 3, maybe at the end of season 2. It all runs together at this point. I don't fucking know. So go back and check out the episode. It's an awesome episode. They're great people. But John, he's been investigating this location long before the documentaries. He's been investigating this house for 10 years. He was called in by this lady, Miss Alice, who owns the house. She built the house from the ground up. Nobody's ever died in it. So they've been trying to unravel this paranormal mystery of why it's so haunted. It scares her so much that she doesn't even stay in her own house. So she built it back in the 90s. He's been investigating for the past 10 years. And the House in Between documentaries are about his investigation and about him and about Miss Alice. Great investigator, great guy. So y'all sit back and relax and enjoy the show. We'll talk next time. Bye-bye. Hey, John, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Finally.
Yeah. It's always weird working out schedules between everybody. You know, everybody's got busy lives and full-time jobs and things. So it's easy for the audience to think that, you know, this is what we do all the time. And especially if you're in documentary films and things like that or on TV, people think, oh, that's just what you do. You don't have to actually work. We all actually have to work.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know, we're working towards that journey where we can do this full time, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, I'm fortunate I've gotten to where I can do the podcast full time now. So it pays the bills, pays for itself. So I'm trying to get there slowly, but, yeah, I wanted to have you on to talk about House in Between documentaries. Like I was telling you before we started recording, they're two of my favorite paranormal documentaries. For the simple fact that they're real. Like, y'all try to debunk everything. Y'all try to be transparent about everything. And then also, Kendall and Vera Whelpton are two of my favorite filmmakers anyway, with Robot Ninja. And I've had them on the show here talking about The Conjuring House and some of their other films. But, yeah, I want to have you on to talk about your background because you were the first one to investigate that house and kind of get the ball rolling with that. And we're investigating there for like 10 years before the filming of the House in Between documentaries. So how did you get into becoming a paranormal investigator to begin with?
Yeah. So I started, I guess, officially being a paranormal investigator in 2008. So I guess I've been doing this for 15 or 16 years now, which there's people who've been doing it way longer than I have. But my specific journey is I had experiences as a child. I would hear voices, whispers, different places. So my grandfather, who I spent a lot of time with, they were from a small town in Mississippi called Brookhaven, Mississippi. And he did estate sales. So I would go with him in the summers and help clear out places and like organize things. And several incidences in houses and locations, I would hear whispers and I would see shadow figures. And I mean, it happened numerous times. It was just kind of like sporadic when it would happen, right? And I just kind of just chalked it off as just me, just like being paranoid. There was one house we went to that was like it was mid 1800s. It was a Victorian style house. Actually, it was kind of your typical spooky looking house. But anyway, they were having an estate sale there. And my grandfather was outside labeling stuff, getting stuff ready for an estate sale. And I was the only one in the house. And upstairs in the bedroom, I heard two people talking clear as day. Matter of fact, with my own ears, and I was probably 13, 14 at this time. And I walked upstairs because nobody else was supposed to be in the house. And as I got up there, the chatter got lighter and lighter. By the time I made it upstairs, there was nothing there. So that was kind of definitive. I never told anybody this at the time, never told my grandfather, never told my parents. Because, I mean, who's going to believe a 13 or 14-year-old, you know? So that just always intrigued me, and I never let it go. It always bothered me, you know, to understand what I experienced. So, you know, I'm old enough to know, you know, when the internet was still in its infancy. So I started using the internet to kind of research supernatural, paranormal, ghosts, and understand like what that is, who else has experienced it. And then there's a website I found that's still up today, which is way ahead of its time, but it had like supposed haunted locations in each state. So my thought process was I wanted to put myself in as many haunted locations to validate what I experienced as a child. And that's what I started doing early 2007, 2008. So 2008 was my first official investigation at a place called King's Tavern in Natchez, Mississippi. Ghost Adventures has been there. It's one of the oldest structures in Mississippi. And, you know, I think 300 plus documented cases of ghosts here from, you know, speculation. Wow. So I was like, okay, let's put myself in this situation, this location, and see if I can experience what other people have. And I went into this with two of my friends. They're not into the paranormal. They just are supportive. And I didn't want to go by myself because I was kind of terrified. So we went there, and I went into the investigation totally the wrong way. I wanted everything to be a ghost, every knock, every
Right.
nook, every noise. This was like a 1789 building. But inevitably throughout the night, we didn't have anything happen. I was just kind of getting bummed out. I was so fired up, so determined. And towards the end of the night, we had a door slam by itself, which we couldn't replicate. And we actually called an EVP, which at the time I was using an old analog recorder. You remember the little mini tapes you used to use, like answering machines, right? So
that's what I started off using.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, we didn't know what we were doing, but we captured just a loud woman's voice saying, "Hi." And it was just, from that moment, I can remember that. It was 2008. I remember capturing that voice, and it just sent me in this trajectory of like, my goal is to prove life after death. And then I created Smoke and Mirrors Paranormal, and we started traveling around the country. We would just get in the car, pick a place on the weekend, and we would just go all over the country trying to document proof of life after death. And my goal at the time, this is before Vine, this is for TikTok, all this stuff. So my background is business marketing. So my thing is that I understand that people have short attention spans, and most people are not into paranormal. It's a very small batch of people, right?
Right.
But I wanted to show people true, raw, authentic evidence. And that's why I created Smoke and Mirrors, which is a play on words because it's all smoke and mirrors, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people at the time were uploading videos, like hour-long videos, 2-hour-long videos of them investigating, just random investigators, random people. The problem is people don't care. They're not going to watch an hour-long video of people roaming around in the dark. So what we would do is we'd investigate locations, and it's not as sexy as you've seen on TV. So there's several places you go, you just don't get anything. It happens.
Right.
But the places we went where we actually got stuff, we would do those clips. We'd put them up on our website, 20-second clips, 30-second clips, audio, 15, 20-second clips. Basically, I wanted to pump it out and let people click and listen and be like, oh, that's crazy, and then move on. But the end goal was to let people know that there is proof of life after death, the paranormal, supernatural, there is some legitimacy towards it. So that's always been my goal, is to just show raw, authentic evidence. And then that kind of led me down the road. As an investigator, I never did private residences. We did a couple throughout the Smoke and Mirrors era, and I had some bad experiences because, believe it or not, people are kind of crazy. A lot of people, a lot of people think their houses are haunted, but they're not. There's relationship stuff going on. People are in like some traumatic, things going on in their minds. But anyway, a friend of a friend reached out to me and introduced me to Alice Jackson, who owns the House in Between house. And because she was only like 30 minutes from where I lived, I went and met her and chatted with her. And if you've seen the House in Between or the House in Between 2, you can tell that Alice is a genuine, raw, authentic person.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You get what you get with her. So upon meeting her, I could tell she was just purely terrified. She didn't know what to make of the situation. And number two, she was almost kind of embarrassed because, Mississippi is a small Bible Belt town. It's not something you tell everybody, hey, my house is haunted, because they look at you crazy. And she really just wanted answers and to understand what was going on in her house. And within being in her house for the first 30 minutes, I had a paranormal experience of my own with a shadow figure going up the stairwell, which brought me back to what I just told you when I was a kid. Same thing with my grandfather in that house. So it kind of was like full circle. And I knew that she wasn't making stuff up, and she actually needed help. Yeah.
She definitely comes across that way in the films, because in the first film, she even talks about how she was afraid to tell anybody. And Absolutely. She finally told somebody and figured out there were people that wouldn't think that she was crazy before she ever reached out to anybody. And that seems to be like a common thing with, I've never done private residences, a whole lot of them. I've done quite a few to help people out. But like you said, there's lots of things that go into that. And I worked in medicine for many years, so I know the mental health side of things. And people also, it's dangerous too. What the general public doesn't understand, it's dangerous for us to go into somebody's house we don't know. You don't know their intentions. You don't know, you just don't know. But yeah, I've never done a lot of private residences either. But there are a lot of people out there like her who need people to do private residences and to step in to help them out, figure out answers, so they're not scared, because she hasn't slept in that house in many, many years because of the paranormal stuff that she had encountered. And so to have somebody come in and try to help her, I mean, it's awesome just to especially since that kind of wasn't your forte or even what you were looking at doing, you know?
Right. Absolutely. Well, and that's a good point too, because like I said, we've done a few private residences. We went to one lady's house. You know, we actually created a questionnaire back in the day where we would ask questions, but then we would ask them. We'd ask the same question a couple of times to see if the story would change, to see if it was worth our time. Because the reality is, if somebody thinks their home's haunted and they're desperate enough to open up their home to a stranger who is dealing with supernatural ghosts, and like they're in a state where they don't have another choice. So, you know, as an investigator, you have to take that seriously and go in and just do your due diligence. And like I said, a lot of times there's other stuff going on that's not supernatural or paranormal, and you just have to work at it. We showed up to this lady's house I'm talking about, and I mean, the house was atrocious. She was a single mother. There's 2 small children there. The house, I should have called DHS, you know. Yeah. So we did what we could do, made the children feel safe, and we got out of there. And that was probably 2 or 3 years before I met Alice or so. And I mean, that was early on in the paranormal, and that's kind of why I didn't do private residences, because I like historic stuff. I wanted to document paranormal stuff, and I'm like, I can't get in the mix with these people, you know. So to the investigators who do private residence cases, kudos to you, because that's an emotional toll. My wife is a nurse and she does paranormal with me, but she did hospice for a lot of years, and it's kind of the same thing, because when you take on a hospice patient, you get really ingrained with the people that you work with, and you're trying to help them out in a traumatic time, and it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I just had a hospice nurse that I know on my show, Lynn Monet, talking about her experiences as a hospice nurse for 17 years in the paranormal and things that she's seen and experienced with patients. So with Alice, so she built this house herself, right?
She did. Yep, in 1990.
Yeah, so there's nobody's died in the house that she knows of or anything like that, because she built it from the ground up, built it the way she wanted it. So what was there anything, because my first question as an investigator, with one another history, what's the kind of the history of the land around there that y'all could find out?
So the town of Florence is a small town in Mississippi. It does have a unique history because the town itself burned twice. The entire town, records and everything burned, everything.
Wow.
Luckily, the town historian, who Mary Alice, who's in both films, is, and I'm going to get this wrong, but she's in her late 80s to early 90s. So she's been around for a long time, and she knows a lot of the land. So she remembers things. She's written accounts of things that burned because she was there. So where Alice's home is located, there's a large cemetery just right up the road. And from what we gather and what we think, there was plots of burial land all over where Alice's house was that they uprooted and then put in a central point. You know, if you watch The House in Between Two, not to give too much away because we want people to watch them. We brought in ground penetrating radar, which is something that Alice wanted to do for a long time, because it basically is like an X-ray of the ground beneath you, right? And we were able to see that it looks like there were several plots that look like burial size plots. And then we brought a excavator in and dug in the backyard, but, you know, watched to see what we found. But that essentially, like you said, you know, a house that's built in the 90s, it's not the house, the brick and mortar that's haunted, it's the land itself with Alice's property.
Yeah, either the land or the people. I've known people who are haunted too. It didn't matter where they went, they had paranormal activity. And the house is interesting. I love the way it's the big A-frame type house. It's kind of really cool, lodge style, really neat house. Kind of one of the big things the films, both of them, even in the trailers, kind of center around is the staircase that goes up to the second floor, because there's these baseballs or balls that will sit there for weeks at a time and never move. And then all of a sudden they'll just fly off there down the stairs.
Yep. So, you know, the baseball experiment, and this is one of those things going back to like, it's not as sexy as you see on TV.
Yeah.
So kind of my role as lead investigator, when I met Alice, I decided we're going to go in, start documenting things, is experiments, you know, and as an investigator before I met Alice, you know, and it's not guilt, but it's just what we like to do. As an investigator, I want to hit as many locations as I can. I want to travel all over the country, if not the world, to do investigations. And I think that's a great thing, but we don't spend enough time in one location to truly build a relationship, as weird as it sounds, if there's an intelligent haunting there, and truly set up experiments and take time. So the first time that we put a baseball on the stairs, and like I told you, the first time was at Alice's, I saw a dark shadow figure that went up the stairs.
Yeah.
So to me, that was kind of like a hotbed. She said the back right bedroom in the house was rampant with activity, but to me, the stairwell was kind of a focal point. So we set up trigger objects all throughout the house, but we did set some baseballs on the stairs. And we use baseball because they're heavy. They shouldn't move in a normal house unless you have an earthquake. But they also have stitching on both sides. So we have cameras set up pointing right at them. So if it moves, the stitching kind of gets a focal point, like a bird's eye view. So you can tell if it turns left or right, and, you know. But the first time we set that up, it took almost 8 months for that to move. And it's one of those things where 8 months doesn't seem like a long time, but if you set it there and it's 8 months, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and right. So it's just one of those things where we just sat and waited, and inevitably, you see in the film, eventually the ball came down the stairs, and then it started happening over and over again. So we're like, holy crap. And it's the same thing with the chandelier. I was investigating Alice's house for over a year before we realized that the chandelier or the lighting could do anything. I was in the house one night, me and a camera guy, and just messing around doing EVPs, and I asked if the house missed Alice or the spirits missed Alice, and the chandelier was on, and it drained behind me because my back was to it, and I didn't realize at the same time I got a shock to the back of my neck, almost like if you do like a dog collar or touch an electric fence or something.
Yeah.
I literally jumped up out of the chair, landed on my knee, and realized the light had drained. So it's one of those things where you never want it to happen again, but you want it to happen again to document it.
Right.
So we started focusing on the light to see if it could replicate itself, which inevitably, as you see the documentary, it does. Same thing with the baseball. So I wrote a book in the paranormal, not to plug my own book, but Peek Through the Veil. So one of the things I have in the book, a chapter, is called Teaching the Spirits. And as crazy as it sounds, with Alice's home, we do feel like we are teaching the spirits in the house. I always say, like, one of my favorite paranormal movies, it's not really a paranormal movie, is Ghost with Patrick Swayze. So if you remember, he was trying to push the cup, trying to learn how to move objects, but his hand kept going through it. Yeah. It's like he had to learn eventually how to, like, focus the energy and move the cup. Well, it's the same real world concept that we're doing here. Because not only have we created the chandelier to replicate itself, and then the baseball to replicate itself. If you watch part 2, we also take just a random object, which is a blue doll. It's a doll in a blue dress. So we're like, how much of this is like our consciousness, you know, Alice, me, Brad, Amy, the people who work with the house between, if we focus on one object and vocalize it to the house, could that one object be moved? And if you watch the House in Between part 2, we show you legitimately that it's possible, whether it's our consciousness, whether it's the spirits in the house that hear us and they're responding to what we want. But the timeline is shaky. Like, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 8 months. So it's just kind of like, how close can we have to have an actual conversation with whatever spirits are haunting Alice's house? And to break that down real quick, what we believe after being here over a decade is there's 2 dominant spirits in the house. There's a male and a female. We feel like they were attached to the land. And we've had different mediums come in throughout the years, and they say it's like a spirit hotel, meaning like spirits come and gather energy before they cross over. Sounds crazy to me, but it makes sense because we've been able to capture all different voices through her house, kind of aggressive, some not aggressive. But a cool thing is there's a female voice there that we've been able to document on and off for over a decade. And when I say that, we have a software, and I mean, anybody can have it, but you know, when you get arrested, they fingerprint you because your fingerprints are unique. Yeah. It's the same thing with your vocal tone. Your vocal tones are unique. So we've been able to fixate and document that we've captured the same female vocal tone throughout the years. So it's not just a one-off. There's some legitimacy there. I think Ghost Adventures used that also in an episode. They did Johnny Cash's house in Jamaica, and they captured a EVP and put the EVP on a vocal software, and then they did an interview of Johnny Cash and overlaid it on each other. And the vocal tones were like identical. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I think I'm with you. Like, I think the spirits learn over time there are a few locations that I've been to multiple times, and it seems like you're saying, building those relationships and stuff to where they trust you, to where there's a place called, you ever heard of the Thomas House in Red Bowling Springs?
I have, actually,
Tennessee?
yes.
I live right outside of Nashville. So,
Okay.
So I've been to Thomas House many, many times, and we do public ghost hunts there too. Whenever ghost hunt weekends aren't there, we do 3 or 4 a year, me and a few of my investigative partners. But, I've probably been there 10 weekends, because when we go, we're there Friday and Saturday, and we don't leave till Sunday. So we're there 2 nights every time. And I've been there so many weekends that they just know us when we walk in the door. And there's not a weekend that we go there that we don't get a bunch of EVPs and a bunch of activity. And I think it's because they're so used to us and they know we're respectful. And we come in with different questions every time. We don't always ask them the same questions. They don't get bored. But I also think, like you were talking about with the house in between being a ghost hotel, that's kind of how the Thomas House, I think, is, because we do get various spirits coming through that we have never heard from before. And then we get some of the same ones, like Sarah and Edwin, some of the people that we know really died there. And Mr. Cloyd, who the Cloyd brothers opened the Thomas House that used to be the Cloyd Hotel. But we also get all these other different voices too. There's a cook who used to work there, an older black gentleman who worked there. He only comes around every once in a while. We'll get responses from him. So yeah, I think the ghost hotel thing is interesting, and I've seen it at Thomas House, and that's the one place where I've been many, many times over the past 5 years. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of credence to that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I have a controversial take on mediums. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I'm not either. So,
and just, I've worked hard doing this for 15 plus years now. And again, I know people have done this longer. I'm just saying my personal journey. I've been doing this for 15 years. So what kills me is I hate TikTok. I hate people who read tarot. I think if you read tarot on TikTok, you're the worst person. I'm sorry. Because they're taking people's money. And it my wife will tell you, she's like, get off TikTok. Because anyway, but having said that, there are some true skilled people that have a mediumship. And I've been blessed in my career to meet a couple people who are truly gifted in that. And Jill Morris, that's in the house between 1 and 2, she's one of the few that's just what she's able to do in a location. Because Steve from Ghost Hunters is obviously the executive producer, and he's also in the documentary as well. But he is a skeptic, if you don't know. I mean, he is like trying to, if you watch The House Between 1, you'll realize that it's more of a human interest piece on Alice telling her story than it is a paranormal documentary. And we got some heat from that at first, and that's fine. But he was right. He didn't want to just flood it with all the evidence we got. He wanted it to be something that's unique that would draw people in who are just not just in the paranormal. And if you watch The House in Between 2, you'll see that we're able to put a little bit more paranormal documentation in it. But Jill, Steve, and Kendall found, I think she's from Seattle or somewhere up north, but they had her fly down and told her nothing about the location, where she was going, and for her to be able to walk in and she sketches. She's also in the Haunting Lodge as well, Kendall's new documentary, and it just, again, shows her skill set. She's incredible. The things that she was able to do in the first house in between, the one thing that gave me chill bumps, unlike I've ever experienced in my life, because I've been with Alice for over a decade, is I told you the town of Florence burned twice. Well, Jill was talking and saying that she keeps seeing fire, the smoke, the town burned, and Alice's smoke detector starts going off to the point where Kendall has to pan to the camera to it to see what's going on. It's never done that before, and it's never done it since. And for the things that she's been able to tell us before and then eventually ended up happening, she's a true test of people who actually have a mediumship ability. And she's amazing. She doesn't want fame. She doesn't want notoriety. She just comes in there and she does her thing. And it's truly incredible to see that. So her saying that, and then there's a couple other mediums that I do respect that have never met at different times, different years, kind of with the Spirit Hotel thing, saying similar things like that had me balled in. Because at first I was kind of like skeptical, like Spirit Hotel, that just sounds like kind of hoaxy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I mean, it really does make sense, because there's times we'll go to Alice's house and it's calm, cool, collected, and there's other times you go in and you don't feel great. You feel like somebody's like right around the corner. You feel like there's some aggressive energy, and you know, nothing ever demonic, but just you don't feel as welcome as you have in the past, and that's why Alice can't sleep there. I mean, there's times where things will just fall off the wall and loud noises happen. So how could you sleep peacefully in a house by yourself when these things are happening? And one more thing is, like, as an investigator, watching TV or being on an investigation with your group of people is one thing, but if you isolate yourself in some of these locations, I don't care who you are, your mindset changes. It is different when you're in yourself by yourself in these locations and you're vulnerable. Things change quickly.
Yeah. We tend to be brave in groups and run toward things, but when there's been a few times where I've been by myself setting up equipment or something before we do an investigation where I've picked up my step a little bit because I'm by myself and hear something or have footsteps behind you or something. Yeah. Alice also, she's seen like real true orbs of light in the house is one of the things that she said really, really scared her for no explanation. You know, orbs are something that's thrown around a lot, as we know, because every picture has an orb in it now, which is, you know, ridiculous. And all these people posting things online that are dust and things that aren't orbs. But I've been lucky to see an actual orb with my own eyes before, and it's pretty interesting to see something like that you've heard about in the paranormal, and then you see all these fake pictures that are just dust or water vapor or whatever, and then to actually see something just emitting its own light is just a interesting experience. Have you ever experienced anything in the house like that?
Yes, one time, and it's in the first documentary. There's raw footage of it. Luckily that I had, but we were upstairs, right up the stairwell in the bedroom with the door closed, me and my investigator, and we were sitting on the bed just kind of doing EVP, and the bottom of the door frame lit up like a white blinding light, and it was almost like a camera shutter for a few seconds, but it was isolated in the house. Like after it happened, we sat there on the bed. I don't know what the time was, but like we just looked at each other. We're like, what was that? So we go out, and luckily, because you never have those things recorded as they happen, but we did have a still camera. This is before we had the house wired up with cameras. This is when like me and we would go in with handheld Sony Handycams with, you know, the IR lights and stuff. But we had a Sony cam shoot in the living room, and it's on the house in between if you want to watch it. But it looks like a camera shutter in the house. We caught it. And I don't know what to make of it, but it was like a pulse of light. And it's cool because that's really what drove Alice to reaching out to me initially in the first place, was the light that she saw. She didn't know if it was like extraterrestrial. She didn't know if she was dreaming or what it was, but that's the only time that I've ever physically seen it in the house with my own eyes, that dramatic, and captured it on film.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't know if it's, you know, connected to something paranormal or some kind of natural phenomenon. Another thing that I've seen a couple of times, and when I've seen this, it's always been followed by paranormal activity. Like something has happened that we can't explain, but it's like almost like a sparkler in the dark, like shimmering, but it's like sparks falling, and it'll be in like one area. At one place I was at, that phenomenon I saw in the corner of a room, and then about 30 minutes later, my cousin who was with me actually saw a full body apparition walk in that same area.
Wow.
So my question, is it something trying to manifest? Is it, you know, trying to gather energy from that environment, or, you know?
Well, and that's what I think. So we did, I investigated, people always ask me, what's the scariest place you've been? I'm like, I've never heard that question. Thanks for asking.
Right. Yeah.
But the one place that we investigated that actually lived up to the hype was Villiscak's murder house. I'll tell you what, we went to that house, and I've never been affected as hard as I have been at that house. Like, I had night terrors. I kind of like blacked out at one point. I don't know. I've never been that affected at any location. I'll say this. If I felt that way at every location I investigated, I would not do the paranormal. And it's just, I did not have a good experience there. Watching back after we did the house, the whole time we had cameras rolling the whole time. There was just these pulses of light just like flooding into my head. It is interesting because we had a lot of stuff die, like you hear about batteries draining and stuff like that, which I haven't experienced that a whole lot in my paranormal career. But for whatever reason, that night at that house, we just had things drain, batteries drain and stuff go out. And watching the footage go back, it's just interesting to see like the lights, we're documenting things like draining batteries. So, a true orb or whatever that is, like a manifestation, clearly, like we're all made of energy. Like I give an example of like, a cold window pane, you put your hand on it and you take it off, your handprint's still there, right? So like we're all made up of some kind of energy. Let me ask you this. I'm curious on this. I captured a video one time of like a blue orb pulse of light. Have you ever seen anything that's blue color?
I've not seen blue. What I saw is white, and even like the sparkles in the dark are white or silvery looking. Okay. I've never saw anything blue.
Well, I called the blue thing once, but I was like thinking in my head, and this is years ago, and it's the only time I've ever captured it on film. But I was thinking like, you're thinking about a flame, like the hottest flame is blue, right? Yeah. So I'm like, is that like stronger energy? But I hadn't really talked to a lot of people about the blue orb that I saw, and I agree with you on REM pods. I think they're useful to an extent. Yeah. Like if you're using EVP and doing other things like that, like the more dots we connect, like if the REM pod goes off and we capture an EVP, like that's what we want to make it legitimate. Because, like key fobs and stuff like that can set it up. But it is neat because if you do see that ball of energy, that light go into the REM pod, I mean, we know that it picks up energy. So there are, like I said, I think it's useful, but I think sometimes people lean on that equipment a little bit too much.
Yeah. To me, I think your body is one of the best tools. Just the way you're feeling, like you say, sometimes when you go in that house, it's calm and clear, and then other times you just feel uneasy and like you're being watched. And I think as an investigator, even investigators who don't have any kind of intuitive ability whatsoever, I think eventually we all get that. We know when we're in an environment and we walk in and feel the energy and say, "Oh, tonight, we're going to get some activity." And then you walk into other times where it's just flat and you can feel like it's just calm and clear, like you said, and you're not going to get much activity. And then it'll ramp up too sometimes, though.
0 to 100 real quick. That's what we say about Alice's house. So me and my wife were in New Orleans. We go to New Orleans all the time. That's our favorite place to go. We're actually going a week from tomorrow. But we went for our anniversary, and we did an Airbnb in this old place. It was in the 1800s, but it's not haunted. So we were there for a few nights, and first couple of nights, I wasn't thinking about anything paranormal. We were just having a good time.
Right.
Well, one night, it was, I think, the third night we got back, and it was 10:30, 11 o'clock. So she goes upstairs to go to bed. But I get back in this house, and I'm like, I don't know. I call it my spidey sense. I guess everybody has their own thing. But you just feel, I'm like, and I always keep my stuff on me. I keep my recorder and my stuff in my bag with me at all times. I just do. So I get in this house, and I'm like, she's upstairs, and I just go downstairs, and I just sit in this chair in this room, and I'm like, there's like a presence here. This is like crazy. So I sit down, and I do 4 recordings, probably 10, 15 minutes, and I play it back. There's nothing on the first or second one. The third one, it's a male voice, clear as day, silent audio. It says, "Nice horses." And I'm like, like class A, clear as day, loud. I'm like, what the hell? So obviously probably residual. I mean, it could have been a conversation I picked up, like "nice horses, New Orleans." That makes sense, I guess. But it's just cool to like you said, your body really is the best tool, because I wasn't thinking about anything paranormal or supernatural, but when it hits you that hard, sometimes you can't ignore it. So I just kind of followed suit and got a recorder and sat down, and I'm like, it was a good validation for myself. Because when I feel this feeling, I need to stop doing what I'm doing and just record no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the house in between, does the activity come and go? Does it seem to be, because I know my own house is haunted, and I think it's because I'm haunted, but I attract things. But it feels like in my own house that whatever the guy that's here, I don't know, he recharges his batteries for like months at a time, and nothing will happen. And then it'll be like a month where something happens every day, and then it kind of dies down for a while, and then it amps back up. Do you find that to be kind of the case with that house as well?
Yeah, it is. And as weird as it sounds, filming and doing stuff is weird because it's nice because when we met Steve, Brad actually reached out to Steve and kind of coordinated that. So Steve came down because Steve drives everywhere. And if you don't know, Steve has a fear of, he doesn't fly.
Yeah.
And he doesn't live close to Mississippi. So the first time he came down, he walked in the house and he said, "Hey, I'm Steve. I came a long way to experience you. Can you do something?" The chandelier was on and the chandelier turned off. I was like, all right. So Steve grabs a chair, hops up on the chair, starts twisting the bulbs and trying to like tinker and figure out what's rationally happening.
Yeah.
Goes to the, and he says, "All right, let me reset this." So I'm going to go outside. He comes back inside. We turn the chandelier back on. "Hey, I'm Steve. Here, drove a long way. Can you validate that was you? Can you turn the light off again?" Boom. So we're like, high-fiving the spirits. We're like, "Yeah, good job."
Right.
But like to say that, like, it's weird because I truly believe the spirits are understanding what we're trying to do, which is to go back. When you go to a location, we always ask, like, "Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this?" We never stop to ask, "What can we do for you? Like
right.
How can we help tell your story?" And that's kind of what we've been telling the spirits at the house in between. Like, how can we prove to people that you're real, that you're here, whether you're trapped? Like, who are you? What can we do to help tell the whole world who you are? And it seems to have worked out because it's helped when we needed it to. The first documentary, if you watch the very end of the house in between, you'll see something very dramatic happen. I mean, it happened right in front of Kendall's face, and Kendall told us that's one of the most dramatic things he's ever seen in his life. And Kendall has been a producer on the Ghost Hunters for years and years and years. So for that to happen for the short time that we filmed the documentary was incredible. And then fast forward to the House in Between 2, if you watch the very end, I have an exit interview that I do with Kendall. And again, something dramatic happens. Something that we've been working on for almost 10 months. And that was literally as true as you see it. They were breaking down gear and stuff like that. I had to reschedule my exit interview. So I call something out, like Babe Ruth style is what Brad says. And I say, "Hey, this is gonna happen. I've been saying it's going to happen before you guys got here, so watch. It's going to happen before you leave." And they were packing up to leave. And inevitably, at 12:30, it was late at night, I got a call. And it was Kendall and Brad freaking out. And I thought they were messing with me because I was an angry person because we've been trying to do this for almost 10 months. And just watch the House in Between 2, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's like capturing lightning in a bottle, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I truly believe that they understand how important this is to tell their story for us, for them. And we've done 2 documentaries, and both times, right at the end, before everything wraps, something truly dramatic happens. But yes, like, because it doesn't happen like that all the time, I mean, if you look at what we have documented and able to show you, like, since we finished the House in Between 2, me and Brad, Amy, we've been, even Alice has become kind of an investigator throughout this process because it's given her power back, and she's been able to be at the house more than she used to be to try to understand what's going on. But we've documented so much more that's happened, but it is sporadic. Like you're saying, there's a new project, a new thing we've been working on, but it's taken, I guess, 5 or 6 months. So like, if you're an impatient person, the paranormal is not for you.
Yeah. And that's when we do some public events throughout the year. Usually do 4 or 5 just for those. We don't do it to make money. I know there are a lot of people out there that do. Unfortunately, we do it to support the historic location where we're doing the public ghost hunt, where people can buy tickets, and also to show people what real paranormal investigating is. And one of the first things that I tell them, we get up and give them a 20-minute spiel about what's going to happen tonight, how we're going to do this, and how they're part of the investigation, and they're going to be the investigators. But the first thing I tell them is, it's like fishing. I'm just going to set this expectation. It's not like TV. TV, they might film for 7 days to get 45 minutes worth of TV, and they might get 1 EVP the whole episode. And I tell them it's like fishing. Sometimes you get some, sometimes you don't. And we might sit here all night in the dark talking to shit that we can't see and sound like crazy people, and we might not get anything. But, if that happens, then we'll try to entertain you with stories, the history and the stories of the place, but never do anything to fool you or fake you out. And I think there are a lot of more people who are seeking things like that out. And I think that's why the House in Between documentaries resonate with so many people, and they've been so popular, is because y'all do go to great lengths in those documentaries to disprove everything.
Yeah.
Like bringing in electricians, bringing in to make sure the foundation's level and things like that. And that transparency is what I love about documentaries like that. And also what you're doing with the house, continue to do with the house. I think is awesome too, to have those case studies of one place to gather. And like you say, try to tell the stories of these people that are still here, and figure out, you know, what is their message? What do they want to send out in the world? And also those people, you know, probably weren't historical figures that are remembered for anything. So I think that even going into places that don't have those type figures, I think it's just as important to give the dead a voice that are still there, to say you still mattered. You still matter. Just because you did something grand in your life doesn't mean your life didn't matter. And so I love that aspect, that we can still kind of memorialize them in a way.
Absolutely.
Through EVPs and hearing their voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And, you know, just, you know, them working with us, and I mean, it seems crazy, but it seems like we're tapping in. You know, my question is like, and I challenge and I write stuff, again, not to plug my book, but like doppelganger is the whole thing, I think, in the paranormal that people don't talk about enough, you know, because we always talk about using our energy and stuff like that. There's been several times where we've been able to capture something where it sounds like my wife's voice or Brad's voice or somebody else, but we have cameras all over, luckily, so we realize it's an EVP. So it's an interesting concept, but just to understand, like, how close can we get to have a true conversation with somebody that's crossed over, you know? And that's kind of what we're doing. We're doing an experiment right now where we're asking those questions, and we're starting to get a response, but it's taking some time. So, you know, it is a blessing, though. I'll tell you this. I'm very thankful for Alice. You know, this is her home she built for her family. She's been displaced, but she has the courtesy to open up to us all the time, to be able to just document, almost like a laboratory of sorts. So it's a very unique setting to have a place like that. And it is a true haunting, and it's a blessing. We get to watch it all the time. So,
yeah, I know y'all do periodic events where people can buy tickets and come experience the house. How often y'all in there? I mean, you're talking like you're in there on a regular basis. How often do y'all go in there, like throughout a month, to investigate?
Typically, we try to go at least once a month. If it works out, we'll do twice a month. And we have, you know, Brad watches the cameras, he pulls the footage and whatnot. We usually have at least 2 or 3 projects set up that we're trying to get to have a reaction for. And then we'll kind of, every 6 to 12 months, we'll change it out if we don't get a response. But usually a month to 2 months, we'll go in there and try to get some raw footage and document some stuff. Because, again, we're hoping there's a house in between 3, right?
Yeah, I hope there is. I hope there is, yeah. Kendall and Vera are busy
They
people.
are, absolutely.
If anybody's ever watched any of their other documentaries, the Hunting Lodge they have out now, which is awesome, the Sleepless Unrest, and then Kendall also has a lot to do with Discovery Channel, and if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the cameramen on the boats for one of the fishing shows in the Bering Sea. So he goes out there with those guys for months on end, and so he's very busy, sought after cameraman for, especially Discovery. He does a lot of stuff for Discovery. Yeah, it's been a blessing working with Steve and working with Kendall and Vera, his wife, who is an incredible editor. I mean, it's cool to do what you do and be raw, but to make you look good and put all this together, it takes some special people. And there's a lot of behind the scenes storyboard stuff and stuff they put together that works. But Kendall's camera work and his eye is something that's truly special, for sure. Yeah, and to put it together to be dramatic and compelling without trick camera shots or trying to fake anything, I think is what makes me love them too. And their films a lot and what they do. So what else does your team have going on? Because you're still an investigator. You investigate in other places and still travel around. Yeah, we are. We're not as much as we want to, but we are. We're still focused on Alice's house. We have a lot of stuff that we want to do. We've captured some more dramatic stuff that we hope to be able to show people soon. And we're really trying to understand the story. You know,
in the House of Between Two, we brought in a physicist who is incredible. Carolyn is her name. And unfortunately, she had a paranormal experience. We didn't want her to because she kind of got like, she wasn't a believer in the paranormal, but she saw what she thought was a figure walking in the backyard. So that kind of like, but we're still working to see how we can tap the resources that we have coming in and kind of do some stuff at Alice's house. So that really takes up the most of our time, is trying to kind of dig deeper into the House in Between.
Yeah, I got some buddies who have a documentary series that's airing in Canada right now, Haunted Discoveries, and they brought in Dr. Harry Kluwer, who is the only person in history to ever get 2 simultaneous PhDs. And so they brought him in as a scientific mind, and I got to meet him. He's an awesome guy, but they use a camera called an EMCCD camera that he developed because he's an astrophysicist. And so he developed this camera for ultra low light to shoot at the stars. Well, they've taken it and used it for paranormal activity for photon events. So it's events of light that you can't see with your eye in like total darkness. And they've caught some crazy things with it. But I think that's cool to bring in the scientist and to see y'all do it and then them do it, and the kind of the snowball of, hopefully that's where we're going in the paranormal with TV and documentaries, is more trying to get science involved than Ghost Adventures and some of the other demon and drama and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody asked me on a podcast one time, they said, why do you think science doesn't take the paranormal seriously? And I said this, because anybody can be an investigator. You don't have to have a PhD or a degree to be a paranormal investigator. And a lot of people don't mean to do harm. They're interested, like I was back when I went to King's Tavern, and you went in with no knowledge and you just didn't know what the hell you're doing. But the problem with that is it can be detrimental to the field. And there are people with bad intent, just like there are in any field. They go in there and they want to be famous. They want to be on a TV show. They want to do all this. The reality is the paranormal field is a very small batch field. And if you come in here trying to be famous or make money, it's like you have better chances of winning the Powerball and Mega Millions than doing that. And you see that. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 plus years. And again, I know people have been doing it longer, but I've seen numerous people who've come in for the wrong reasons, and they've been out of the paranormal for a long time. If you have a love of it for the right reasons, you'll find your way and you'll just enjoy. I mean, documenting and proving life after death is really the ultimate goal. And Brandon Alvis is fantastic. I've never met him. We've had back and forth interactions before, but he's a person that you can tell is purely in it for research, data, and we need more people like that in the field.
Yeah, I am fortunate to have met them and become friends with them. And me and him text back and forth all the time, and especially to have somebody like him to pick their brain. If I don't know something, I can text him and he gets back with me pretty quickly.
Smart guy.
But yeah, great guy, great people. And I was lucky enough to ask me to come film an episode of their TV show with them, which was a lot of fun. I don't have any desire to be on TV or anything, but it was fun to go do it one time and be a part of what they're doing.
It's weird. You have to repeat yourself every time. Yeah, the interviews that you do, I watch like true crime documentaries, and I'm like, now you know the process, like having to repeat yourself, and they ask you questions. It's look. Here's the thing: for actors and actresses out there, if you're able to get on the screen and do the things you're able to do, kudos, because I am not an actor. That is some hard stuff.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the behind the scenes stuff too of filming and setting things up, especially with, like you're saying, with the interviews of like, okay, let's do that again, but say it this way. Let's, that type of stuff. How about let's walk this way on this next take instead of the way you walk this time. Yeah. And the weirdest thing on camera is to walk normal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like Ricky Bobby is like, I don't know what to do with my hands right now. But it is. It's also, and it's like, and your first take is usually the most authentic, like we're doing with this interview right now. Yeah. And you feel like you spit some fire, and they're like, cool, that was great. Let's take A, B, and C, but then regurgitate it. And then you just feel like you're a fake robot saying it again. Yeah. So.
Yeah, the second time they tell you to walk as they're filming, you kind of stiffen up a little bit, and it's not as natural or normal.
Absolutely.
But yeah, well, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we want everybody to watch The House in Between 2, and check it out. And, we have a lot more to show with Alice's story. And, we're hoping there's more avenues to watch it, but it's on Tubi right now, Amazon Prime, YouTube, all kinds of stuff like that. And A Peek Through the Veil is my book. So if you want to read a paranormal journey, I am not a reader. I don't read. So I'm heavy visual. I have a guy who's from Chile who actually met through Instagram. We've never even met or talked.
Yeah.
But I was looking for an artist. I like a lot of the charcoal paintings, as you can see behind me.
Yeah.
So a lot of my visions and things I've experienced, I have 35 original pieces of art in the book. And actually, if you'll send me your info, I'd like to send you a copy just to have.
Yeah,
but
I appreciate that. Awesome.
It's just thoughts on the paranormal, the equipment that I think is awesome. It's like the top 6 of my locations I've been to. A little backstory, the house in between, Doppelganger, which again I think is not talked enough in the paranormal, and some other stuff. So
yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes for people to go check out your book and check out the films for sure. But
absolutely,
yeah, I hope that y'all get to make a third one, because like I said, that was kind of my introduction to Kendall and Vera's films, and actually Steve Gonsalves, being a fan of Ghost Hunters from way back when, was kind of what drew me to it to begin with, and then I got familiar with you and Brad and with Kendall and Vera, and just just the dynamic between all of y'all is awesome. And I can't recommend the documentaries. And my audience knows, like, I'm a serious investigator. I don't do bullshit. I don't like the bullshit. I call it out. I talk smack about ghost adventures and, other people in the field all the time. Not trying to be any kind of gatekeeper, but I just want to keep it real, and that's what I appreciate and respect what y'all are doing because of that.
Well, we work hard. I mean, again, I've sacrificed and done. I mean, sacrifice too. As an investigator, I mean, I do have a family, and it's long nights. Sometimes it's the way you're investigating, and then it's not just while you're in the house, but like when you pull back, you have to go through all the video, all the audio. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into this stuff. I mean, capturing the stuff that we've been able to do. It's cool to throw it on camera, but you realize we've been doing this over a decade.
Right.
So we were showing you this stuff, but it's like taking 10 plus years to show it to you. But I do like that we've done it the way we have. And Steve and Kendall are geniuses for doing what they wanted to do. Because me and Brad were pissed off. We're like, we need more paranormal stuff in this.
Yeah.
But they're like, hold on, this needs to be a human interest story mixed in with that. Yeah. And they were right. It reaches a wider audience, and we're blessed to have Steve as a part of it, because he is a skeptic. He's very well respected in the field. Yeah. He's one of the OGs of the paranormal. And, we checked a lot of the boxes. So even for skeptics, I'm always one of those people like, look, this is what we got. It's not fake. So if you can't explain it, we at least have to have a conversation about what this is.
Right. Right. And I think the biggest thing that probably drew me to the film was the human interest part, like you're talking about, because I think that drives home the fact that we are messing with people's lives.
Yeah.
Like when we go into a private investigation, a private home, like this is really somebody's life. And so I think it showcases Alice in that way very, very well, and shows hopefully some of the younger investigators out there who want to get in the field. It shows them the seriousness of what we're doing with when we go into private homes. And like you said, we need people to do private investigations, but I hope the people that do, are out there trying to learn how to do them properly and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and again, somebody like Alice, she just wanted help. She wanted somebody to help tell her story and figure out what was going on. So it's a long process. It's almost like seeing a therapist for a long time. you just work through it and figure it out. But it has been cool to see, Alice from the house in between one before we started being embarrassed about her house to now, like, she can't go around Florence because she's like a celebrity. They're like, hey, you're the lady at the haunted house. So it's been a cool thing to see, but she's taken the power back, and she's almost become an investigator with us to kind of determine what's happening and document, and we'll see what else we can discover.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody. Y'all stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to The Unseen Paranormal. Join me next Wednesday with a brand new guest, and please rate, review, share, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. This helps more people discover the show. You can connect with me over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or join us in the Unseen Paranormal Lounge group on Facebook. Until next time, remember, some of the scariest things are unseen.
have come to the end of the line.